Okay. Whoa. I have 7 o'clock, so we will call the August meeting of the Hartsville-Trousdale County Planning Commission to order. Shutter, would you call the roll, please? Here.
Here.
Here. Okay. Next is approval of the minutes. We've had that all day today. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to look that over. If anybody's noticed any corrections or additions that need to be, please speak up.
I make a motion to approve.
I guess there's not any. I have a motion from Mr. Thomas to approve. Have a second by Mitch. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, please say no. Does pass unanimously. Does any member have any changes or anything for the agenda? Anything? I would like you to add under discussion, just add field house as the first item there under discussion. We'll explain more about that when we get to it. It's the school system as an item that Dr. Satterfield is here to discuss.
I'd like to move the discussion for food trucks to next month, please.
Come on. We can't get along without you, Heather. Okay, so we're going to add under discussion, just add field house and then take off food trucks. And we will postpone that until next month since we have a pretty good size agenda already for tonight, if nobody objects. Okay, are we good? Yes, sir. Have a motion by Mr. Nollner to approve the changes to the agenda. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Welch. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. Does pass unanimously. Okay, so we have our agenda set for tonight. There is no old business, so we'll get right into our new business. First is a rezoning request by Johnny and Linda Adcock, 1 acre from A1 to R1. This would be at 1415 Crenshaw Road. And their reasoning is they would like to carve this acre off to allow their granddaughter to build a home there. Is anyone here representing the Adcocks? No one? Did they know to be here?
They did.
Okay, because typically we won't take up a rezoning without the owners being here. So I guess we need to postpone that then and get in touch with them and make sure that they realize that somebody has to be here to represent them. Should have reminded them at church yesterday. I forgot. All right, we have a few site plan reviews. The first site plan up for review is the new education building at the TCAT Hartsville for the state of Tennessee. Anyone here representing TCAT? Please come up to the podium. May, how you doing? Now, I might mess up and call it the trade school. Well, you gotta, my mom worked there 20 years and that's all I ever knew. So if I mess up, please forgive me. Gentlemen, would y'all please state your name so the secretary can get it in the minutes and then go about.
My name is Johnny Leonard and I'm with Huddleston Steel Engineering.
And I'm Walter Smith with Orcutt Winslow Architects.
Are you good, Shutter? Go ahead, gentlemen.
So today we're here to discuss the new building facility at TCAT Hartsville. It is a 69,000 square foot facility, 2 stories. The elevations I think you saw in the renderings show a mix of materials from brick, metal panel, storefront. And our roofing is mainly EPDM and standing seam metal roof for the building materials. We do plan to have an exterior monument sign at the driveway. That sign will mainly be out of materials, brick and metal, as well as, but we're removing any kind of LED lighting or electronic displays. So once we have the plans for the signs, we'll definitely communicate that with commission. Trying to think, what other information you all need
Okay.
today? Or if you had any questions about the plans we submitted.
Hopefully everybody's, this has been in your packet. I really appreciate the pictures. I showed the picture. My uncle lives right beside the TCAT and showed them to him this morning, and he was ecstatic with it. I think they look great. I think it's looks like a college, actually.
That was
And,
one of the charges, was to give a new face to the campus.
Well, it's certainly going to do it. It certainly is. It's I guess I'm gushing, but I think it's awesome. Does anybody have any questions for either one of these gentlemen?
Yeah, I just had a question. What's the square footage you're adding on? So you said 69,000 total.
That's right.
So the existing, what's the breakdown, the existing versus new build?
Existing versus new, there's a 3,000 or about a 3,100 square foot addition. And then the new building itself will be the 69,000.
Okay, thank you.
Rosalie, do you have any questions?
I'd just like to say that I do see here on the rendering that it is zone C2 and that you do have the setbacks of 30, 20, 20. Is
I
that
believe
correct?
that's correct.
And as far as the ADA compliance, you've got all those in there.
For the building itself, that will go through our own internal review, but then it's also reviewed by the State Fire Marshal, the Tennessee State Fire Marshal's office, as well as a third-party reviewer for Tennessee Board of Regents. So hopefully we're doubled up there and tripled up really, and we'll meet that.
Well, as far as Hartsville, Travisville County is concerned, make this lady and Jared here happy, and we'll be happy.
And I just had one other question. So I didn't see the calculations for the lot coverage. I know there's a 20% max, but maybe I missed it someplace. I didn't see those calculations, but
There is a 20% max.
yeah, I mean, well, I guess it depends on where the question is zoning.
They have it as C2.
C2, okay.
Yeah, and I'm looking up what the coverage is.
Well, it may not be an issue then.
Just for those that may be your first meeting or something, Jared here represents GNRC. He is hired by Travisville County to be an advisor to the Planning Commission. And of course, Miss Rosalie is the, I don't know, what is your title? Because she's everything right now.
The interim.
Okay. Again, should there be some issues come up, you can work with Rosalie.
sure.
And that's what a Board of Zoning Appeals is for, should something arise that needs to move that way. Okay, does anybody else have any more questions? Ms. Rosalie's going to kind of check on that, and she can get in contact with y'all and let y'all know. Any members of the Planning Commission have some questions? Okay, hearing none. Is this final or is this preliminary or final or
Site plan.
just a second? So it's a,
So
okay, so, as far as you're concerned, are we ready to move on with it? Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have before us the site plan for the new education building at TCAT Hartsville out here on Highway 25 East. If nobody had any questions, any discussion, Mr. Thomas?
I am concerned about the 20% coverage of the lot. Because, I mean, I'll need to go before BZA for approval on that. If this doesn't meet that, that maximum.
Someone could, of course, make a motion to approve the site plan pending that resolution, and if it needs to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals, then that's, could be managed. So whoever would like to make that motion, just put that in there. Do I have a motion? Mr. Thomas?
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion by Mr. Thomas to approve the site plan for the new education building at TCAT pending Ms. Rosalie's calculation of the 20% maximum on the coverage of the property. And she will work with the gentleman in TCAT to, if that happens to be that way. Do I have a second? Is that Heather?
There, I'll second that motion, yes, sir.
Second by Ms. Bay. Discussion and or questions? Cal, y'all got a question or something? If you do, we're not in a hurry. 50%. I'd say we got a BZA meeting coming up.
Yeah, I think I got my 20% from, when I pulled the zoning, what I saw actually was that the zoning is, from what I saw, was listed as R1. And the map, I
So
think,
the-
Rosalie and I talked a little bit about, there's a little strip right there, the C2, that's adjacent on the other side of the street. And
Yeah, there's a market
there's
right across the
question
street.
of which zone it really falls into. I mean, the zoning map shows R1.
May, do you know what the property is owned? I mean, it's been there forever. Oh, okay. I mean, it's,
But our zoning map shows it is R1. It hasn't been,
And I
it
think
hasn't
that's,
been
I
updated.
think that's where that 20%.
no, I mean, that building has been there since the 60s, so.
So, they can cover up to 50% of the lot. In
Okay.
C2,
In C2.
in Hartsville.
Okay. Again, y'all can work with Rosalie, and it needs to be a meeting of the BZA. We can get that on that agenda.
Happy to provide that information.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, based on that information that we found, I guess I need to amend my motion from 20% to 50%.
I guess that's right. And that's a problem we run into, especially with older properties like this from back in the 60s especially, where the zoning was just never updated on it.
That's kind of where it led me down that path. Where it's on 20,
Right.
and kind of find
Right.
calculation.
I mean, who would think of that here all this time later? Okay, we do have a motion and a second on the floor. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. does pass unanimously, again, gentlemen, y'all just work with Rosalie and should it need to go to be, which sounds like it does, there shouldn't be they meet on an as-need basis, so. I think there's another thing maybe tonight that might have to go there too, so we'll get that worked out.
Wonderful.
Thank y'all.
Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, next on our agenda is a site plan for a 10 townhome unit multifamily development. This is by Justin Trent Mason or Mason. I apologize if I'm saying that wrong. Mason. This would be on River Valley. Someone representing that development, please come up. Please state your name and
Justin Mawson.
Cody Joe Haynes.
all right, gentlemen, go ahead.
We're just here to answer any questions. We're just presenting a few townhomes to build on a property we've already had rezoned through y'all.
We should have their site plans a lot of there.
If I'm not mistaken, this is just below the emergency management building. Isn't that correct, gentlemen?
Correct.
If you know where I'm talking about out there on River Valley. I drove out that way over the weekend and looked at, yes, sir. I don't, it's a vacant lot. Yeah. It's a vacant lot right now, isn't it, gentlemen?
There was a trailer. We just did a demo permit to take the single wide off of it.
Okay.
So it is vacant now.
So there was a trailer there, Mr. Nolan, but it's gone now. Right now, it's a just vacant property. Any planning commission member have any questions? While you're thinking, Jared, do you have anything?
Yeah, so during the site plan review, there were just a couple of items on the site plan itself that were missing that need to be there. And it's kind of a little laundry list of them. I don't know if we want to go through all of them.
Whatever you need.
So we kind of we need the information, all the structures, including the number of dwelling units to be in the building, how many it's going to accommodate. I know there's 12 units.
10.
10. So I mean, are they single family? Are they single story?
They're single family, 1-story units, so there'll be 10 occupants there.
And so some of the other information that was missing, so we need the, if there's any information on the easements and right of ways crossing through, I didn't see those. The driveway and entrance information, I think, I don't have the site plan in front of me, but is not listed on there as well. So based on what the parking is, are there any ADA spaces there in there at all?
We did anticipate putting ADA on the pretty much four ADAs for every 3 units. So, and then an extra one on the last unit. So yes, there are ADAs.
Okay, so those would just need to be shown on the site plan where you propose those to be. Then again, kind of same issue we had in that last site plan, but looking at what our proposed ground coverage is on the site. As well as the dimensions, floor area and height. I think we talked about 1 story, but somewhere we need to indicate that on the plan itself. Didn't see anything about information on surface drainage or any drainage ways or facilities that are going to be on site. And then see the utilities for the water. I don't know if the remaining utilities, I don't see them. I see a 6-inch water main in the road right in the front. Um, and I don't see fire hydrants or anything listed on there. So just, just small things like that that need to be on that plan before, we could approve it. Um, Then also landscaping, there's some landscaping requirements that'll need to be shown, as well as the, I guess if there's any signage. Is there gonna be signage on site for it, or?
Maybe we would have the drive command would be named, essentially unmaintained county road. So there would be a street sign right there coming in.
Okay, I mean, it's not necessarily have one, but if you do, we just need to see the
Potentially.
location
Mhm.
and follow the regulations that are in the zoning for that. And then the last two items, sorry, it's a long laundry list of them.
It's okay. That's what we're here for. That's what I wanted to know.
If there's any information on your solid waste storage, if you have any, like, any dumpsters that are gonna be out there, where they're located, if there's any means to screen them. And then the last one, really, if there's any type of lighting, where that's proposed to be.
We were gonna pretty much not do any street lighting on
Okay.
the property at this time, maybe at the sign at the road that we might put in potentially, but.
Thank you.
The property line on one side will have a fence. You want us to itemize that as well on there?
Yes, if you could. And then, basically we can find, I mean, all these requirements are going to be found, I believe they're in Article 7.030. And it should kind of give you the checklist of what needs to be on the
Understood.
plan itself.
Simple enough.
This would be a commercial entity, and if it bounds a residential, there would have to be a fence there.
I'd have to go back and double check. I don't
Am I
think it
correct?
does.
So this is R3. This was rezoned to R3, so it's multi-family.
Oh, okay.
It's not commercial.
It's more
Okay.
just the requirement of if you do have any fencing on site that
Okay.
needs to be shown.
Yeah.
Okay.
So as far as a buffer strip requirement,
I don't
You've
think there
got-
is.
no.
Okay,
There's-
that's
there
fine.
shouldn't be.
That's fine. Rosalie, did you have anything, or did Jared get it all?
Jared got most everything that I would have said.
You can keep that if you need it.
So as far as anything else, I know that they have done a lot of due diligence and trying to figure out, okay, what exactly do we need to have on the site plan? They do have like the compass rose and the scale and everything else like that, so. I don't see it. And now, how many bedrooms? What type of units are these?
3 bedroom, 2 bath, one story. Yes, and while we're here, can y'all just verify that our setbacks do match for R3 and are good for what y'all have? So I don't have to change actual building locations.
Yeah, I believe when I reviewed it, they do meet requirements, but
You do.
Good.
So basically, from what y'all are saying, their setback, their site plan lacks the things on, what was that article?
7.030.
if I'm correct, 7.030. I can go back and let me just double.
Well, I wanted to say that again, make sure that gentleman got it down.
Understood. Thank you very much. We'll make the changes needed and present it back to you.
Is that all you can see, Rosalie? Okay. So we've heard from Rosalie and Jared. Does any members have questions? Mr. Thomas?
Mr. Chairman, with as many things that are missing off this site plan, I'd like to make a motion to let them take this back and present it to us when it's all filled in.
Okay. I have a motion by Mr. Thomas to postpone this until the site plan is corrected. And to have a second by Mr. Welch. Any discussion? Yes, ma'am?
I don't believe the application matches the property owner's name. I think he's going by two different names. One's Trent, one's Justin. If we could just,
My middle name is Trent, Justin Trent Awesome.
I just don't want somebody else getting the wrong claim in 20 years. So if we could fix that clerical error, please.
Okay. Any other questions? So on the floor, we have a motion to postpone this until the corrections are made on the site plan. And whenever those are ready, they can come back. Just get in touch with Ms. Rosalie. Have a motion and a second to that effect. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, please say no. That motion does pass. So gentlemen, whenever y'all get that done, just get with Rosalie. She'll get you on the agenda. We'll get that took care of.
Thank you for your time.
Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
That section is 7.0.
I saw he was writing it down. I just wanted to give him another chance to get it right. Okay, next is a site plan for a 12 apartment unit development. This is by Tracy and Angie Langford on Green Top. I think both, Tracy, are you the boss? I know who the boss is.
My name is Michael Dowd, Beasley Construction.
Did you get that shutter? Mike Dice. Okay, go ahead, Mike.
We're planning on a 12-unit site plan to get approved up on Green Top. Y'all have a copy of Carmen's, site plan in front of you, I hope. That's gonna be a, 2-bedroom, 1 bath. Fire hydrant is we're probably in the center of 2 fire hydrants. It's right here in town. 6-inch water main, I think, or 8-inch water main. Sewer tap been located by the water and sewer department. Any questions? We have the fence on the diagram. It's on the church side and also across the back of it and back up the other hill on the other side.
Okay. Jared, you got some?
Yeah, so initially, I mean, I think just looking at if I'm, the first item I think would be, this might require lot consolidation, because right now we're looking at 4 separate lots, and they need to be consolidated so that we could put this plan. It has been consolidated, okay. Was that just recently, or? I did.
During an R3.
Okay,
zoning,
so it's
and
all- okay.
been- Yes.
Well, we'll
You
strike
know,
that then.
Sometimes the TN property viewer, it takes a while to catch up. with
Okay.
all the current data.
Well, forget that. Let's see. And then some of the small items, again, were kind of similar to the previous applicant. One of them is that there could be a requirement for sidewalks, being that it's so close to downtown. As section 4-108. And then some of the other items were site plan related. So again, number of dwelling units. I know we discussed that just now, but how many they're intended to accommodate. I think you said they're 2-bed, 1 bath.
Yeah, 2-bedroom, 1 bath. By the square foot, the lot will require, is authorized 13, but we just can't fit 13 in.
Yeah. And I have that site plan.
Sure.
Thank you. So again, on this one, we'd need you to show the easements and right of ways, the location of the driveways.
Yeah, I believe it's on there. You had a bigger copy of it on the bottom right. It shows the driveway coming in and road up to the center of, up toward next to the main road.
Do you have a bigger copy, Mike?
No, but I had it on my phone.
So it's-
But on the right-hand side of the paper,
No.
it comes in there.
Okay. Rosalie says it's there.
So it's there. So then some more details about that off-street parking, and then those proposed sidewalks, maybe some widths and.
Does this qualify
In
for
depth.
sidewalks?
For our regulations, yes.
There's a sidewalk already on the street already.
I'm sorry, Mike.
There's a sidewalk already on the street.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And then identifying some of those ADA compliant parking spaces as well. Information on the proposed ground coverage on that site.
We don't know if any of these units will be ADA compliance or not.
He's not
Because
talking
it's
about the
big-
unit, he's
Just-
talking about the
Just the
parking.
parking itself.
Oh, just the parking itself?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we can throw a couple in there and just write it down.
Some other information were that, proposed ground coverage, what your calculations were on how much of that site is gonna be pervious.
Do what again?
So looking at the calculations of your structures that are there, like what is the percentage that they take up on that space?
On a lot? Maybe 30%.
So that just needs to be identified on the site itself, the site plan. I think we've got all of our utilities there. And then, I guess the final two items were, if you're gonna be doing any signage, we just need to have that on the plan along those.
There won't be no signage.
No signage?
No.
And like I said, the last two items, sorry, were also if there's any refuse disposal areas that need to be identified on the site plan and as well as any screening
Okay.
for those. And again, lighting, if there's any site lighting on there as well.
Okay, there's lights on the main road, but the city provided lights. There's already 2 street lights out there.
Okay, so nothing internal though.
And
No-
there won't be,
no
there won't be no
internal
more
lighting.
parking lights out there besides that. Cause that'll light up the front of the building.
And they already have a dumpster site located at the top end of the strip there. So for solid waste, they have that already set up. Is that what you were asking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they already have it notated on here. And they do have a buffer strip highlighted on there as well. I know it's tough to see with the small ones. I should have printed them out ledger size.
Well, let's just go to you, Rosalie. You've heard Jared's. What do you see on the site plan do you see anything on the site plan that needs to be added?
I would just like to echo what Jared said about having at least 2 ADA compliant off-site parking. One thing I do want to ask, so these are going to be constructed as apartments, or so will they have a sprinkler system in there, or are we doing townhome construction?
As you say before, there's no such thing as apartments anymore, so that to be done to townhomes.
Okay, so you're going to be using townhome
Yes.
construction. Gotcha. Basically, you've kind of covered everything. You've got the dumpster, you've got the buffer strips. The only thing that I would like to know is like how the distance to the nearest fire hydrants.
There's one at the church, so that's probably probably 100 foot.
Mhm.
And there's probably one on the other end, probably 100 foot away, 150 foot. So it's within the 500 foot boundary.
Gotcha.
Either one will be.
Okay. That's basically all I have. You've covered all the bases.
Okay, so my question is, we've kind of gone about this and I probably haven't kept up. Does anything need to be added? Couple of things, I think, but, okay, not nearly the extent that the other site plan was. Okay. So, the question before us, well, wait, do y'all have any questions for Mr. Dice?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
So if I'm keeping up with everything, the ADA parking spaces, a minimum of 2, need to be on here. Is there anything else missing?
I think a lot of the things that I brought up, Rosalie and the applicant had already confirmed they had done. But yeah, I think that parking, I was trying to keep it myself, trying to make lines and notes through those, but, I think we answered the question about height, building height, so single story. I can't think of anything else.
The only thing would have been, when we've done subdivisions in the past, even say for instance, out on Bass Road and on Templo and everything, we wanted to know the distance to the nearest fire hydrant be notated on here. So just, if we get that information, we can put it on here,
So distance to the fire
just
hydrants
the distance to the
and,
nearest fire hydrants.
and then what was that other one? Minimum of ADA parking spots, where they're located on the plan. So those are the only two items that need to be added. So anybody else have a question for Mr. Dice? Because anyone wanting to make a motion we could pass that contingent upon those items being added and turn back into Ms. Rosalie. Do I have a motion? Mr. Welch?
I'll make that motion contingent upon the 88 parking as well as the fire hydrant distance.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor from Mr. Welch to approve this site plan contingent upon the two items being added to the site plan and approved by Ms. Rosalie. Do I have a second? Second by Shutter. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, please say no. Does pass unanimously. Okay. All right, so that ends our site plan reviews for this evening. Next are our discussion items. The first item under discussion is, I told you to write down field house, but basically what this is this is going to be a project by the school system. That's why Dr. Satterfield's here, and that's why John's here. He's the architect on this, that's been working with the school board on these things. Just to bring everybody up to date, after Jared's first meeting with us last month, when we adjourned, I took him over, we walked over to the parking lot there at the community center, and I was asking him questions about the old field house that's there now, where all of us that played football from the 60s on, that's how long it's been there. That's where we dressed. And so, but I was asking him questions about flood zone and asking him to research that and what options, if any, the school system had there. Jared, if I misspeak, please correct me. But Jared emailed me, I think the very next day, and said that because I had asked him basically two things. Could the school system go in there and do something with that building? One was a remodel where you could leave the walls up, go in and basically hollow it out and redo the inside. And the other was just tear the whole thing down and build back new. And of course, the school board's question to that would be, which one's most economically feasible? Which one's cheaper? And so we haven't got the answers to those yet, but hopefully we will that in the future. Jared told me that what this would be considered a rebuild. Am I using the correct? Jared, you explained it, Jared.
Sure. So, as it stands, it's in the regulatory floodway. So, I'm not a floodplain expert, but, I know that stands in the regulatory floodway. And so there are some restrictions on what can be done there. Looking into it, the two options basically that I see, at least the way I see it, is more of a substantial improvement. where you do leave the walls standing. I guess the issue here is you don't want to get your FEMA insurance canceled because you've done something to put yourself in jeopardy and your FEMA insurance. So as a substantial improvement, it's doing exactly what he said. You're leaving the existing walls up and you're not increasing or displacing more water. If you're
We're not-
building more structure,
Not increasing the footprint.
you're not increasing that footprint, then you're essentially you're just rebuilding. And a lot of that kind of goes into play. I have to look back at my notes, but it kind of, there's pre-firm and post-firm, meaning that prior to the city having some floodplain regulations in place, this was built prior to that, and I believe you said it was the
62, I believe.
62, so I think that's probably well prior to your floodplain regulations, but I don't.
2010.
So 2010, so.
A little bit.
That allows you a little bit of leeway there as well, so I'll just kind of read from what I sent to him. So again, it's in the regulatory floodway. Most likely to be considered a substantial improvement, meaning that any reconstruction, rehabilitation, or addition or other improvement to the structure, this is where it gets kind of out of my depth, the cost of which equals or exceeds 50% of the market value of the structure. So there's little math calculations in there. So, we need to determine the cost of the building to do the work, to determine the market value of the existing structure. And then, I think we've made the determination that's probably a substantial improvement because we're not planning on tearing it down, at least in this scenario, and rebuilding.
Well, unless it's cheaper.
I think by tearing it down though, then at least from what I understand, you're gonna have to meet the new floodplain regulations.
Okay,
which
then
is
tearing it
elevating
down's out of the question.
So then you're gonna have to meet the floodplain regulations of raising that building, which is gonna be
Yeah, that's
a
right. You
substantial
can forget
cost.
that. That's done.
So we'll call it a substantial improvement for this purpose. And then, I think we've determined this is pre-firm, so, all that to be said, it's gonna come back to this council for review, and, basically what you'd have to do is review this and make sure that, an engineering analysis probably needs to be done, and that you feel comfortable issuing a permit to rebuild in that area.
Okay, and that's,
And
yeah.
accepting that risk that, as I understand it and what I've seen historically, I haven't seen any massive flooding there, but, it's always that
Well, it's been a long time.
chance. So,
Right.
I think you have to accept that risk of rebuilding.
And unless something changes, which I don't think it will, we actually plan to decrease the size of the footprint of that current structure. Am I right, Dr. Satterfield? Right. Right.
So it actually reduce your footprint, but I don't see any allowances for, like, even though you're reducing it, that it adds more to the case.
Okay. So basically, it's a decision of this committee. And, right,
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I guess you need to make that decision, and, I have a number of the local, I guess it's the FEMA coordinating office here in Nashville, and then there's the desk reference manual that's multiple pages, it's probably 90 pages.
yeah, I'm not worried about FEMA.
Intricacies of how they calculate all this, but
Okay.
I think honestly, the state coordinating agency may be the better, bounce the idea off of them and they could tell us, at least my perception of what I read and understanding of it, that this being an improvement, a substantial improvement, would allow you to rebuild
Okay.
in that same footprint. And ultimately, it's gonna come back again to planning commission to have to review this and see if it's a project you think is feasible in that area. I guess there's also that risk assessment of like, what's the loss if this building floats downstream?
It's a little late now, he's
That's
through.
it.
So basically, the way I understand it is the planning commission. That's why Dr. Satterfield is here tonight, representing the school system, is to, and I've talked with Rosalie about this. And I'll let her speak for herself, but for this committee to, that's why it's a discussion item, to discuss whether you see any issues with basically going in there and remodeling the inside of what's there. It's the current structure. It's going to be actually reducing the footprint there and would be displacing less water than is being displaced now. And to be honest with you, whatever's displaced is on the school system anyway. They're the school system is the one that would be harmed of whatever is displaced. So it's not like there's a neighbor there or something that, you know, you're hurting with it. Dr. Satterfield, would you like to say anything?
Yes, sir. We're just looking for some guidance about what's the most cost effective. Y'all said a couple of things. That building was built in 1962, 63. It is the second oldest building that we have in the school district. The issue that we've had, it's got the cast iron plumbing sewer lines. And over that many years, we've run cameras and everything down in there, but it's just corroded and rusted and flaked. And anytime that you have any volume of people at an event, then it clogs that line up and then it backs up. And we've had to close those restrooms. And consequently, the last 2 years, we haven't used those restrooms. We've used the porta toilets. And it's really a health hazard, you know, why we haven't done that. So we're looking for a solution. And what we thought was the best solution was to move the team out of that facility and then have that existing building where it would be nothing but concrete and porcelain toilets. That's all it would be. And then when the flood came, then all we would have to do is wash it out with a hose pipe, but there'd be nothing that could be damaged. We know, and we've got our architect here, is that most of the time when you open up that facility, and what we were looking at is just taking the present facility and renovating, is taking that concrete floor and just cutting everything out. We've had a structural engineer look at the building. The trusses are 30 foot, goes across. So you could take out all the walls if you wanted to, and you could cut the concrete floor out, and then you could replumb it and then rearrange it, the facility, how you needed to. So what we would work is making it handicap accessible and make it ADA compliant, and then make it, I guess the word, if there is such a word, make it flood tolerant, right? So to speak, Jared, I guess. And we wanted to do that in the less expensive way possible. So actually we were asking for 2 variances, I guess. The first is if we go back and we touch that existing facility, that you wouldn't make us raise it 7 foot, because that would not be cost prohibitive at all. The other thing I think John would want to talk to you about, and he's an authority in this, is based off the seating capacity. And we've had these conversations more than once. Based off the seating capacity of the stadium and the codes, and he knows more about this, can speak more intelligently to it than I. But like the women's bathroom would have to have 40 toilets. And I'm going, there is no way that we need 40 toilets for a stadium that seats 3,300 people. And that's not cost prohibitive.
That is cost prohibitive.
Huh?
That is.
It is cost prohibitive, I'm sorry. So what we've asked John is to reduce those fixtures in half for both the men's and the women's, so that we could do what we wanted to do for a reasonable amount of cost. So that's where we are. We just need a little help to, obviously, we've got a health concern. And we need some help with some variances so that we can fix it right and, make it safe and healthy. So questions, or John can speak to the.
I think it would be good for the committee to know that basically what the school system wants to go back with is to take the existing building, tear off the back part that was added years later, long past my time. But that existing part, starting on this end, you would have the women's restroom. You would have an area for the officials, dressing area and stuff for officials and stuff. Then you would have an open area that the team could use before games and at halftime of games, and then the men's restroom. So what you can see is just a basic facility there. And keep in mind, we're talking about something that's going to be used maybe 20 times a year.
Right.
You know, when you're talking about the codes and stuff and I told Dr. Sal, and I mentioned it to Rosalie, she was going to kind of look into it, but if we needed to go to the BZA with that, I think we need to do that. Because, I mean, John has to draw it up according to the codes and all of that type of stuff, but I have advised Dr. Satterfield that we need to take that to the BZA, and I think we could show a good case there to cut that down. I think 20 restrooms on the women's side for any of our home games is plenty.
We presently have 5.
Yeah. So we're quadrupling the size of the number of women's toilets anyway, so that would be pretty good.
And
John would, okay. I'm
And the
sorry.
men go from 2 to 10 now. We don't want to leave the men out.
Well, I'm not too worried about the guys.
There's a lot of guys in here.
The women have had it rough. They were actually having to stand in raw sewage for the last couple of years that we used that facility. And so that's how bad it had gotten, was that thing would stop up after just a few ladies used it, and there was literally raw sewage inside there. So we had no choice but to go to the Port of Johns. They were complaining, and I don't blame them. John, would you like to add anything?
No, everything that Dr. Satterfield has said is kind of what we've been talking about as a design group. Chapter 29, the plumbing code, just to be specific on the number of fixtures, requires 21 fixtures for the men, and you can split that up 50% plus 1 for water closets or toilets, and then the remainder urinals. So there'd be 21 fixtures counted in there, and so we'd split that 10 and 10. And then for the women, the total required would be 40. And the way we've got it laid out now, there's actually 22 in there, so a little bit more than half.
Okay.
Question I would have is, what is that? Is that a state requirement for the number of fixtures, or is
That's
that?
the International Building Code 2018.
That's what Trousdale County's adopted.
And Trousdale County has adopted that
Right.
standard. It's a standard code.
I'm just looking or thinking about it, neighboring counties' facilities at their football fields, and
I've never
I
been
know
in
Smith
one that has
County's,
that.
both of their facilities are far below that number, and they have similar in size stadiums, so.
And they just followed the process. That's why you have if we need to go to the Board of Zoning Appeal, Rosalie was going to look into that. I haven't asked her for her answer yet, but we'll find that out tonight. And, but those counties have followed their procedures and done that and gotten them approved. And that's what the school system wants to do, is to follow the correct procedures and get this approved and so we can hopefully get on with improving the facilities at the football field.
Mr. Kerr, if I may answer or address Mr. Welch's statement or question. John, you help me with this. If something was built in the time of dinosaurs, before there were any codes. And it's Smith County or Trousdale County, somebody had 4 toilets and somebody had 5. That's perfectly fine. But in today's world, when you go in there and you renovate it and touch it, then you have to bring it up to code. And that's the difference that we're looking
Well,
at.
that, and depending on if that county has accepted the same building codes that Trousdale County has. They may not, I don't, do they have to? Does each county have to accept the international building codes? They do, okay.
There are like 4 counties in the state of Tennessee that have not adopted building
So,
codes.
okay. But I don't, was it 95? 91 of them have.
I know Gordonsville's, fairly new renovation and their bathrooms,
You've been in those?
yeah, they're pretty small in comparison to
Okay.
what we have.
Okay. And that's what we're wanting to do, is kind of do what's comparable with, you know, one, we want to have enough to supply toiletries for our fans, the people that support the program. But we don't want to have to be the Mercedes-Benz of, we're not building the Mercedes-Benz dome here, you know. You know.
And just to be clear, the building would be code compliant in all other ways, ADA accessible.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So my understanding, when the other site plans over the years that we've approved, that since the building is built in the floodway predating the flood zoning, as long as the footprint's not altered, you can do whatever you want on the inside, but if you tear the building down, as Mr. Satterfield said, you would have to bring it up to code, which would be a 7-foot.
And that's why I had asked Jared just to look into if there were some leniency on that other. I didn't know which was going to be most cost efficient. I was trying to just do due diligence and see which one was best, but I think we all understand that the remodel is best, the most cost
Yeah,
effective.
it seems like really the only pathway to doing it that's economical. I mean, because if you, like you said, 100% right, is if you tear the structure down, you're now having to meet those new standards, and those standards require you to raise it above the minimum flood
Mhm.
height. And so it's going to be somewhere in that 6 and 7 foot range.
Right.
And I think there's substantial costs involved in that versus just leaving it and kind of retrofitting.
Plus the
everything.
elevator to get up.
Because, you
to
know,
it.
the weird thing here is that, you know, we're not displacing any more, we may be less, but we're not displacing any more water. I don't know how the calculation works, but they're saying, you know, if we change that footprint, it could cause the water to rise more. I don't know how that works, but
David, were you through?
Yes.
Any other questions from any members? Ms. Rosalie, would you like to weigh in?
So, I would like to point out that even if you touch a building, if you renovate during renovations, what happens with that? If you work on and you improve more than 50% of the building, then the whole total building has to be brought up to code. And this is what I'm thinking that you guys are saying that you're going to be doing, is that you're really going to be gutting everything, leaving the shell, and remodeling the whole inside. So yes, you would need to bring it all up to the 2018 code, which, you know,
Which we plan to do.
which you plan to do. And any variances that you would need to have specific to the plumbing, you would need to take that to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Okay.
And just for clarity, we intend to bring, everything we do, we intend to bring it up to standard. With the only variance is asking about the number of restroom facilities.
Right, right. So I asked Dr. Satterfield to be here this evening. Yes, sir.
That being said, Rosalie, when you say bring up and it has to meet all codes, would that then negate the grandfather of its footprint? Would they have to, you know, regardless, since they're going above 50% remodel, are they going to have to bring everything up to code, including the floodplain?
Floodplain and building codes, 2 different entities.
So one, there's no site plan to be approved tonight. We're not to that point yet.
No, we're just now gathering information and coming up with the concept.
Right.
And we're probably 25-30% done with the drawings and the design. What we didn't want to have happen is know about this in the back of our mind, get to the finish line, and then
right.
red flags start going on.
So what I had told Dr. Satterfield that what the school system is basically asking from the planning commission is to send this to the Board of Zoning Appeals with either a favorable or a negative recommendation. I personally would hope for a favorable recommendation, but since I am on the school board, I'm going to recuse myself and not vote in this matter. I don't think that would be fair. So that's the request before you tonight from the school system. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to send this with a favorable in favor of variance for both the bathroom, and I guess that would be the only variance that you're needing.
It is. I'm sorry. Okay. Have a motion on the floor to send this to the Board of Zoning Appeals with a favorable recommendation. I have a second from Mr. Gregory. Any discussion and or questions? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, please say no. This will be sent to the Board of Zoning Appeals with a favorable recommendation from this body. And seemed like there was another item tonight that needed to go to the BZA, wasn't it? That we had earlier. Oh, TCAT. TCAT. So maybe, I know the Board of Zoning Appeals meets as needed, so maybe we can get them to meet and
So we have scheduled the Board of Zoning Appeals to meet every month.
Oh, okay.
For planning, because they're going to start reviewing the major home occupations.
okay.
They're good for 3 years, and they have to come back and present themselves and their business plan again to make sure that they're still following what they were approved.
So are
for.
you saying their next meeting would be the second Monday in September?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Dr. Satterfield? All right, the last discussion item on our agenda is about RV parks. You may remember back some time ago, we approved the RV park at 231. I have not personally been up in there, but Rosalie has, and she tells me that it's a tremendous facility, that guy that put that in went above and beyond our codes. It's just really, really nice. It seems like I remember that night we had a discussion about the number of days someone could be parked there. And I think we gave him the number of 30. And had another citizen that's considering an RV park asked me a question about that a few weeks ago. And I emailed Jared and asked him about it. And before I go, basically what I've been told by both Rosalie and Jared is that there's really nothing, there's nowhere in our codes that has a number of days. It's really between the owner and the renter. You know, Corps of Engineers, federal property, think they have 14 days and stuff. But of course, we're not the federal government. We don't operate like that. So that's what I've been told. Rosalie, would you like to address that?
Thank you. Yes, the state campgrounds also have a 30-day limit on the length of stay. When we asked GNRC if there was any state laws considering the length of stay, there are none considering the length of stay for the RV parks. And RV parks throughout the state have set up where you could have different lengths of stay because you have a lot of people that do various project work and they stay there an extended period of time. It could be up to 6 months. It could be up to a year. And so that's how they've been operating their RV parks.
So, the gentleman that talked to me about another one is with Enbridge coming in and a lot of workers coming into the county. It's another opportunity for short-term rentals, I guess you'd say, other than an apartment building or something like that, going up. But again, Jared, am I correct? There's nothing in our codes or nothing preventing. In other words, I don't think we have to change anything. There's just nothing we have that limits the number of days.
There isn't, I mean, if you feel like you need to implement something.
Well, that's what I was that was my next question was, right now, there's nothing. Does this body want to create a certain number of days? Mr. Thomas?
Well, it's my understanding, based on when Sam Edwards was in office and we were talking about the Cove campground, he was adamant that it was a state code that you can only be for 30 days. And so therefore, I never thought it in codes and zoning to even bringing it up. We just always depended on that understanding. So now this coming up, our RV parks have different regulations than our trailer parks. Trailer parks are that way because they're a permanent deal. At this point, with no regulation on an RV park can now be permanent with less regulation on it than a mobile home park. And honestly, with structures that are less durable than in a trailer park. So I would think we would need to have some sort of, an RV park being meant as a temporary solution for housing, we would have to come up with some sort of limitation there.
I personally don't agree with that. I think that the way I would look at it is that it's an agreement. I would say it falls upon the owner. In this case, I would say the renter to have whatever regulations they have with their property and their property agreement with the rentee. If the rentee brings in a substandard RV, then it would be up to the owner to determine that and to say, you can stay, I'll let you stay 2 weeks. Or, you see what I'm saying? I would say my personal preference would be to put the onus on the owner, let them make that decision because it's their property. And everybody wants to protect their own property. That's their investment. And I just say put the onus on them. Now, that's my opinion. David has given his. I'd like to hear y'all's. You may not agree with, that's fine.
Do these RV parks, are we looking to kind of go down the private campground, or are we going kind of a mobile home park? I know, looking here at the private campground, you gotta have toilets, bathhouses, things of that nature. Are we just looking to allow them to?
Rosalie, when you monitored the one at 231, how did you I can't think of the word I'm trying to say, but how did you monitor them? What requirements? And
Basically, I utilized the site plan that the Planning Commission had approved, and going back, the Wayback Machine, we had 3 different phases. Phase 1, he was allowed to have 11 spots. Phase 2, the second section that was above the gas line easement, he was going to be having 7 more spots. And then the third phase was the big shop that was going to be turned into the restaurant, which would also have the ADA parking and everything. So also on the site plan, we had listed what was in the private campground. You had to have a fire pit at each and every parking spot. you had to have one trash bin at every 2 spots. You had to have water at every 4, and you had to have, you didn't necessarily have electric, so to speak, referenced in our ordinance, but it did have like a bathhouse listed. So what the gentleman has done is he has gotten water at each and every spot. He has electric at each and every spot. He has, the septic disposal at each and every spot. He has a trash bin at each and every spot. He does have a fire pit at every spot and a picnic table at every spot. So he didn't say, okay, every 2, he has it at every single one. He's done a lot of research on what successful RV parks do. And he's made sure that he would make his park very attractive. Now, he did mention to me, and I also spoke with Mr. Kerr about this, is that the fire pits are a concern. Because not everybody wants to burn wood at their RV site. You know, RVs tend to be flammable, you know, and that tends to be close. And so when the insurance agent came out there, they were doing the analyzing and everything, they were saying, this is a concern. So we may want to look at, do we need to require a fire pit at each and every campsite? Because basically RVers, now I'm not one, I'm just relaying what I was told, RVers tend to have their own little fire pit, you know, that they bring out, and they have their, whatever they put in their little
Portable grills, things
Yes,
like
and
that.
things of that nature. So maybe I want to look at, you know, changing a little bit of what we're requiring these RV parks to have at each and every site.
I think whenever your insurance questions some of the regulations, you need to look at them. Personally, again, this is my opinion, is that I don't know that each site necessarily has to have a trash bin. I could see a general trash pickup area where the truck could come in and the people take their trash down there and put it, just like the apartment complex that we approved. They're gonna have a general area. I don't see a problem with that. I think Rosalie's right. Most RVers have their own means of cooking outside. And usually it's these portable grills that could be gas, could be wood, could be, but they provide that themselves. And I see no reason to have the one required at each site. You could have a general one somewhere that's away, that's not a fire hazard or something like that. But again, Rosalie and I talked about that. I told her my opinion at that time, and that's why I'm telling it to you tonight. What do y'all think?
I agree with the no fire pit. I mean, I had an RV and we went with my family over the holidays, and we didn't use the fire pit one time. And I've stayed in them working with some coworkers before, never used a fire pit. I mean, you could have a couple of sites with it if you want to leave it out there for them, but I mean, I don't think it should be a requirement. You know, if you want to get one with it, it's optional.
And since you have been an RVer, would you agree that a general trash area would be?
Most of the places we stay, that's what they have, is
That's
a
what
general trash area.
That's what I figured. Others? Heather?
Do you have any other RV or trailer camper facilities that are requesting assistance in timelines on the 30 days? So I can see a property owner having it not set in with their rules and regs within their own and property and needing assistance from the county to help them to get someone to be vacated who may not leave. Have you had anyone come to you with that situation? Asking for local help in codes and zoning so that they can stiffen their regulations as
Basically,
well?
someone not paying their rent, and then,
Or just not being up to par in their
yeah, and basically
expectations.
becoming a squatter.
Maybe, maybe not. Maybe just somebody that they
a
don't like how they,
freeloader.
they don't like how they keep their place, so.
Okay,
Actually, and I'm glad you brought that up. I did happen to visit, the Pine Cove area, and they already have it set up themselves as in the eviction process, and they have utilized that. They have not had to contact our office to help assist with that. Though I have offered that as, you know, property maintenance complaint, that type of thing. But she's had to do that and has not had to reach out to get help with that.
I think it probably would be good for us to, recommend to anyone wanting to put in an RV park that they have regulations before they start renting or guidelines as to how to deal with that type of incident.
I would think their insurance carrier would require that. And I think that, I believe I agree, the optional fire pit, and not it being a requirement on the property owner for the liability reasons. Although we're fall-time RV campers, so we would utilize the fire pit, so, but, that's my notes so far. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you
Good.
aware if Pine Cove allows for permanent fixtures, you know, is it something we could put in that they couldn't build a deck on the side of theirs? That's gonna be a lot harder for, you know, to get somebody out of there if they built a deck, not allow maybe a permanent fixture deck or something onto their RV.
That's a good point.
Actually, that is against building codes for them to be able to do that, and as well as the NFIP for the floodplain. Especially since they're down there by the water and everything, they're not allowed to have permanent fixtures attached to that structure, and we have covered that, and those things have been.
So you're
detached
saying
from
that's
that
already
structure.
in code?
What
It
is
is.
the guidelines though? Can I go down there and build a deck with 4 posts as long as I don't put it in the ground or attach it to it? Is that a non-permanent fixture because it can be moved technically at that time? You know, it might be a little harder to move because it's so big, but it's not a,
You're saying a
Attached.
freestanding
yes.
deck or
I'm just asking this question, you know, because that's when you start adding a bunch of stuff of wood decks and things of this nature, that's when it's harder to get people out.
Again, that goes against what the, against flood. They're not allowed to have anything that can up and float away, as we have seen in other, you know, I remember like when Nashville flooded, that's, you saw a bunch of structures just floating down. They're not allowed to, everything, just even like if somebody goes and gets a shed and puts it out on their property, they get a building permit. Or even those that didn't get a building permit because it's less than 200 square feet, they have to secure it to the ground so that it does not float off. So those are the things that we have covered.
How does it work though for like staying at these places? You see a lot of construction workers and stuff have motorcycles and things of that, and they build these little tent type deals that covers them while they're working on a job all day so it don't rain, things of that nature. Is that part of would you regulate that so they couldn't put those out there? How would that work?
Basically, as far as code would be concerned, we would not permit that, you know, we wouldn't have to require a building permit for that. As far as monitoring that and holding somebody accountable for that, we wouldn't be doing that.
that would be the owner.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I think as long, them and the owner should be able to handle that, I would think. David?
I'm just wondering as we're going through the cleaning up the zoning and combining some of the county and urban, I'm wondering if our campground regulations were more directed towards primitive camping and not as much towards RV. And
Oh, I'm sure.
as the purpose has evolved, the zoning hasn't, that maybe we just need to update that regulation.
Probably when our campgrounds were first being talked about. Years ago, that's when TVA and the Corps of Engineers was discussing putting in a campground down here at Taylor's Landing and stuff. And that was all over the county there for several years and stuff. So I would imagine could have been geared to that. But this is a chance to modernize it and bring it more up to, today's usage.
So then there's two different ways we could do this. As at this moment, Rick Gregory is going through and combining and taking some things out and adjusting some of the zoning so that we can present that document to the full commission. At the point of it being accepted, it would change and it would be precedent overall. We could actually, if this body wants to do that, put that on to codes and zoning, and then codes and zoning could make those changes to those regulations and have it presented all as one big document. What we're doing is any changes that we're doing, Rick's going to be presenting that to the commission and stating why we did those changes, what those changes are, so that all those changes can be done at the same time. Or we could just
Do you know
send it
when
as its own.
that's gonna be,
Right now, he said he is just about got all the wording correct. He's wanting to recommend another individual to actually do the formatting of the document, and then it should be complete. So I'm hoping first of next year at the latest to present it.
my concern with that is we don't have a good track record of the commission passing things like that we send them. I actually think we're batting 0 on that. I don't like those odds. So I think if there's anything that, we need to do concerning this, we just tell Rosalie tonight to come up with basically what we've discussed tonight, bring it back next month, and then we could send that to because I think what we've talked about tonight is pretty much just common sense type things that affect just a few things. I'd rather go ahead and get it in, and then if your committee sees anything down the line, obviously it would go over into that anyway. But I'd like to see us just go on and move quicker on it.
Are we planning to follow the campground, private campground standards? Is that, it says minimum size of 10 acres? Is that kind of the route we're going there, or?
That's what we did hold, that gentleman do too, is the 10 acres, and it had to be continuous and have all these different things along with the private campground. But I think we would probably need to make it more geared towards an RV park when we put our information together. And I wanted to speak to, the section about, I did hold that gentleman to the 30 days where they'd have to move every 30 days in order to do that. And he met a lot of resistance and lost a lot of business being told only 30 days, because these people that are contract workers that are going to be here for 6-7 months, when they set up their RV, they've got everything all set up. To pack that all back up and then move is a hindrance. And they don't want to do that. So that's something that maybe we need to rethink. And as Mr. Kerr said, allow the property owner to set that up.
What do y'all think? I mean, David talked about his position on that. I gave you mine, but we haven't really given Rosalie a consensus of the committee. So what do y'all think about that?
I was just listening to what Ms. Bay was mentioning on concern with a property owner not having the ability to, without any actual regulation. Is there a way with it we could word it in the fact that maybe they don't have to change locations, maybe they just have to re-sign a contract or whatever the case may be, and say that way the property owner still they can void their stay at the end of that contract instead of having them re-up and then.
How you could do that? I mean, to me, the property owner, he doesn't like what's going on. He just tells them to move. You got to go. I may be wrong, but that's the way I look at it. If I'm the property owner and you're, Cal, this ain't gonna work, bud. I give you 2 weeks. You got to go. But again, I may, what do y'all think?
I'm in agreement with you, Chairman. I think it should be the discretion of the rentee or the renter. And they just need to have a plan in place if they have an issue.
I think that's incumbent upon them. Mr. Noller, what do you think?
Well, the owner of the property, how he wants to do it, he needs to set up a company to, if he decides to go out of business, he can get them all out without no problem, you know. They'll sign something.
Well, you can sign all the things in the world, getting them out with no problems is why we have a general sessions court. It's like apartments, you tell them they got to go, but sometimes they don't go. But that's why you have your court system for those that are just hard to get out. What y'all think, guys?
I agree. I mean, let the property owner make this call. We don't want to run people out of here. We have a lot of, I feel we're gonna have a lot of construction in the coming days. And just from my past experience of construction and staying on the road, I ate where I was at, things of that nature. So I spent all my money in that little area, not outgoing. I think it'd be a benefit if we could allow them to stay here just for our community as a whole.
I agree. You get home from work, you're tired, you don't want to
Grocery
drive to
store.
Lebanon or Gallatin to get something to eat. You'll eat, eat what's local. Yes, sir.
And hearing the discussion, and I can agree with all of that, I'm looking at it as from the zoning requirements that we have. If property owners could do the right things, we wouldn't have had to have all the extra regulations for trailer parks. So I'm thinking if RV parks are gonna be something where you're looking at permanent dwelling, then we need to at least have it the same as the trailer parks, or we're not really being consistent with our regulations. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I actually see them as two different entities, but again, I could be, I've always seen more problems with trailer parks than I have with RV parks. Again, that's my limited experience with it. Well, let's just kind of take a hand vote, and we got to give Rosalie some. I'm sorry, Heather, did you have something?
The thing is, society today is utilizing RVs and campers more than they were trailer parks. And so this is your new domain. And, but the difference between the trailer and actually an RV and a camper is you have a product that has to have a registration and a title on an annual basis. And a lot of individuals on a state area do not allow someone to stay more than 1 year, or that becomes their residence. So I think you've got some other formulas, and not to mention the economic impact of them utilizing for being here so long.
Okay. Thank you. So we just need to give Rosalie some guidance as to how to move with this. What'd she say?
Hang on.
Yeah, I haven't. I'm not an RVer. That's why the good Lord made hotels. That's my opinion. I'm big on those cinnamon rolls at Holiday Inn Express. But again, we need to give Rosalie some guidance. So by a show of hands, how many think we leave it to the property owner to decide with them and the renter? Is that the right question that we've talked about? Okay. You on that, Mr. Noller? If you're not, just, I didn't see no hand, so obviously you're not. Well, the majority's against you anyway, so. What else was it you need? Rosalie, you tell us, what do you need some?
Basically was sorry about that. Basically was the length of stay and whether or not we needed the fire pits. And so are we all in agreement that fire pits don't have to be?
No fire
regulated?
pits. No, trash receptacle required at each spot, general, trash somewhere.
What about picnic tables? Are we going to keep that as a requirement?
Picnic tables required at each trailer, at each location, or a general picnic area. Now, I'm not, I don't, you know, I could see it.
Yeah, I'm hearing,
Okay. So don't, not, picnic tables not required, raise your hand. Not required. Yeah, but I mean, that's what we've done. That's why we need to decide this, because we've been doing that.
because I have.
So we need to stop doing that if that's. Yeah. When we were going by the campground rules, I could see, you know, Yogi Bear needs a picnic table to steal a basket from at a campground. We're- Again,
Mr. Chairman, my thoughts on the 10 acres is that gives you enough room for buffer strips and common areas, so it's not congested, and it gives them to spread out a little more. And that was my understanding of the original, when that.
how
was
big's that one at
placed.
231?
It's 10 acres.
Okay.
Exactly.
Are we good on 10 acres minimum size? I mean, I'm just asking. 10 acres, raise your hand. Okay. I mean, I could go either way on that. I'm not an RVer, so I don't know what. Yeah,
I will tell you that I've had,
well, we said minimum. Someone could come in with 100 acres and want to do it, but I mean, we're just saying 10 acres minimum.
I have had people
Huh.
contact the office asking if they could have RV hookups on like an acre, a half acre lot.
That's a
So,
whole different story.
yeah, just, so I think we do need to establish a minimum.
Okay, yeah, we're not. I mean, we're not talking about some dude pulling in an RV behind somebody's house and I mean, you know, right? And I'm not saying parked out there. I'm talking about having someone live out there. There's a difference in having a guest come and stay a week or two and something like that, you know, at Christmas or something, or just, you know, a couple of weeks. But I don't have a problem, but somebody living in there full time, that's a different story.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I'm hearing you correctly, that, and Rosalie, please confirm that in Trousdale County, it's illegal to have an RV set up as a mother-in-law quarter behind your house?
I don't know that it's ever been addressed, has it? It has been.
Yes, you're not allowed to have an RV set up behind your house for someone to stay in on a continual basis. It's against the Tennessee law. It's classified as a ready removable, and you're not allowed to do that.
I wouldn't have wanted my mother-in-law there all the time anyway.
What we've had held in the past is longer than 30 days.
Okay. Anything else? Rosalie, we give you enough information?
I think you guys have been very prudent in what you think needs to happen with the RV park, and I think you've made some really great decisions, and I'll put together something for you.
All right. Anything else before we adjourn on RVs or anything that I think tonight's been a good meeting. First time we've had any things to really deal with in a while. I think we made a good decision on postponing that one site plan. They just didn't have anything. I mean, it's like they never even looked at the codes to begin with, you know. The others were just little piddling things, which we've done before that way.
That was my thought. I mean, as we've said, all these site plans, there's always that, you know, contingent on meeting GNRC's requirements.
Right.
But there was just so many that
They ain't done nothing.
I lost track of how
I
many
agree.
we would have to put in the motion.
I agree. That's why I wanted Jared to read that root number just to make sure the guy got it, because I couldn't have remembered all that. Appreciate everybody coming. Appreciate your work. If there's nothing else, do I have a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn by Mr. Nolan. Arthur seconds. We are adjourned. Thank y'all.